Welcome to the Hirewell Recruiting Insights podcast. I'm your host, James Hornick, partner at Hirewell. Today, I'm joined by Eugene Khazin, the principal at Prime TSR, which is a Chicago-based tech consultancy. Eugene will elaborate more on that shortly, but Eugene, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks for, it was actually funny because I realized, I was looking back today, how long you and I have actually known each other, and it's been a while. Do you remember what year it was? Do you remember how we met?
I want to say something like 2004, 2005.
2006, but close, yeah. And so it was actually funny because this is I always like to throw in if there's some way I can educate a junior recruiter out there. You and I met because I think we got you out on an interview somewhere, and then you took some other offer. And that's the thing is I think that with like recruiters, you know, they're not great at staying in touch with people, and also when things don't go their way, like there's some who just get irritable unnecessarily, and it's the bigger picture is like you and I had a good relationship, and that was really what was more important than any like single job, and then we've done a lot of work with you guys since then. So
that's right, and I think remembering back to that time, that job that I took somewhere else, I believe I involved you right after because we were looking to hire someone else into the team and not the company that actually placed me there. So that also speaks to it's how it started out.
So the long-term focus is always key, and it's that's why that I actually might be best if we start give everyone an overview of your background and kind of what your focus has been, and tell us more about Prime TSR, because we can talk more about kind of the work we've done with you guys, but just so everyone has a little bit of context.
So my personal background, I started out as a data architect, have done a lot of things with data. At heart, I'm still an engineer. And when back in 2013, I was consulting to Accenture. They were my client. I met my partner, Josh Davidson, and together we decided to start a new company, which is now called Prime TSR. And as James mentioned, we are a tech consultancy. We are specifically a tech modernization consultancy. And what it means is that we help clients modernize their legacy tech on-prem software solutions and re-engineer those and move them to the cloud. Seems like a great space these days, and because everybody sees value in that, finally, I want to say. And so I don't need to prove this anymore. It's just a matter of fact for a lot of people, and we help them get this done because over the years we've gotten really good at that.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about today, and this kind of dovetails from what you just said, you guys started like bootstrapping, from the ground up. Like you've been there kind of in the weeds from day one. It's hard. I mean, if everyone could start their own, it's not an easy process starting your own company. In the consulting space, it's crowded. It's like it's the same thing with what we deal with, like in the recruiting space. There's a lot of places out there that do kind of what we do. How do you pick your spots? Like, how did you decide what to focus in? Like, how did you find your fit in the market? I guess to tell everyone about that process, because there's a lot of ways you could have gone. So,
I think one way we could name this podcast rather than talking about how to be entrepreneurial and start a company, maybe we could even call it mistakes that Eugene has made, and we've made a lot of them, right? And the biggest one I see. The one that we made is starting with a service or a product that we think is fantastic and everybody's going to want, instead of focusing on what is a problem that you need to solve. And that's key. And whenever I talk to entrepreneurs, founders of companies, too many times they figure out a solution before they define a problem. And so in our case, we thought, okay, my background is in data architecture. Josh, my partner, is a specialist in applications and software architecture. So let's offer this as a service. People will probably want that. And we initially, just based on our reputations, we were able to sell the first few projects. But then we realized that, okay, this isn't going to work long term. It's not going to scale. There are only so many people that we know that will give us projects just because they know us. And instead, we flipped it around, started talking about what problems we solve. And these days, if we talk about specifically about today, we figured out that the problem that we solve for many clients is without rebuilding, re-architecting their software for the cloud, they just simply cannot take advantage of all the modern tooling and capabilities that are coming to the cloud from a business perspective rather than technical. And then it becomes sort of a no-brainer. All right, you need to use some new service that's only available in the cloud.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you need to implement some kind of solution that Prime TSR brings to the table.
Got it. Is there the thing? It's always like juggling the fact that you're always selling and you're always trying to, like, especially early on, you're trying to figure out what that, you figure out what your service is going to be. You're trying to sell it at the same time, but it's, the smaller your company is, the less margin for error you have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're always trying to find the next project, you're always trying to find the next client, and you're always trying to find a way to kind of deliver on that. And I assume it's probably a lot of like late nights and whatnot. But what advice, I guess, do you have? Because I think that's every startup company, right? You're always trying to figure out how to get there. Like, how did you guys do it?
Lots of
especially
hustling.
early on. What's that?
Lots of hustling and running around, because as you said, for us, it's one deal at a time, and you sell that deal, and then you need to make sure you do a very good job delivering, because that's probably going to be your ticket to the next deal.
Yeah.
And there is a difference between product companies and service company, where in service companies, you have the luxury of being able to start bootstrapping.
Yeah.
Because you can immediately delivering the service based on your own skills and charging for it, and hopefully using the money to finance the next sale and hiring additional people and sort of exponentially growing.
Yeah.
If you are building a product, my philosophy is still, build as small as you can, smallest sellable thing that you can produce. Yeah. And then immediately go and try to sell that.
Yeah. Anything else from just a cost standpoint? Like how, I don't know if I guess I also want to get into kind of growing the organization and whatnot, but how do you just making sure you don't run out of money? You know what I mean? Like, one project that I got to assume early on with what you guys were doing, like, it comes down to, payment terms, you know what I mean? Like, there's, you have clients that are giving you business, but they're, how much knowing if you have that cushion or not and whatnot. Do you have anything there that?
I mean, you mentioned payment terms. You go through all sorts of tricks to kind of survive. And so, for instance, offering client discounts on more favorable payment terms. At the same time, we have some larger enterprise clients where payment terms are very out there, like 60 to 90 days. Yeah. For a smaller company, initially, we would not have been able to do something like that. Yeah. So you definitely need to balance this out and pay attention to cash that you get, right? It's not some magical revenue or some other financial term. People like to throw around EBITDA and all these things. It's cash on hand, and you don't want to run out of it. The other learning for me over the years has been that trying to fundraise and being able to have some cushion is super important. And if I was restarting again, I would probably look to fundraise to have that cushion, because that would allow us to be more aggressive, grow faster, and just have that safety net. Okay.
Would you, and I don't know if we mentioned this already, but so we started working with you guys when you were just the two of you, right?
That's
so
right,
you and Josh. How large are you guys now exactly?
About 60.
60. I mean, so it's been, and I remember for a while, I think this is normal for most companies, you were in that 10-person range, then 20-person range, and then all of a sudden, like, it kind of hockey sticks a little bit, you know what I mean, in terms of taking off. What was it for you guys? Like, what was it that finally you got that point where you could start to scale, at a faster rate than you were those first few years?
It comes down to sales, to execution on sales, and figuring out how to scale and build your pipeline. Initially, it was very much focused on us, just the two of us selling. And as we evolved, we were able to piggyback and rely more on marketing efforts, salespeople, PR, and it's sort of, it gets amplified over time as your reputation grows, as you get clients and they refer you to each other, you're able to grow faster. I want to say, so we're in year 6 and we're year 7 in our existence. Yeah. And the first 3 years were a struggle, and we were in that small size. The other thing you did not mention is that we were very contractor heavy versus employees, and we recognized in other mistake.
Yeah.
That you can't build a company, you can't build a culture just on contractors.
Yeah.
They can deliver the work, they're excellent at technical execution. But to build a team with culture and people that care about the company, they need to be employees.
Yeah.
And you need to have a shared set of values that you together deliver.
What's your breakdown now, roughly, employees to contractors?
Out of those 60, we probably have about 50 employees, and
Okay.
the rest are contractors.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like it's
Very
flipped
different than it was in those early days.
dramatically. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. What about I know your service focus has changed a lot too, like since those early days. Like what adjustment? How did you know you needed to make adjustments? Maybe first tell us what adjustments you have made. But like what signals did you see that you realized that you kind of need to change at least the branding of kind of what you chase down?
Part of it is the product market fit that we talked about earlier, right? Trying to figure out what would resonate with a customer rather than what you think is a good service that you can provide. In our case, we were very, very good at firefighting type of activities where we come in into a failing project and we help save it, make it better, faster, and essentially deliver on the project's objectives. But we realized that from a sales perspective, it's hard to do because you have to be in the right place in the right time. You have to find these failing projects and jump in immediately because usually it's a very, burning platform situation. And second aspect to that is just timing. So we realized that in a lot of these situations, firefighting situations, where customers are calling us and saying, I sold a lot of business, but my technology platform is not able to support it, and I got 30 days to get it done, to get it fixed. In the old days, it was a lot of that was focused around how to be able to fine-tune their code. These days, part of it is fine-tuning the code, but a bigger part is taking advantage of the cloud because it provides elasticity and kind of scaling capabilities natively. And so we started doing more and more work, advisory and implementation, where we take their workloads to the cloud to give them that relief.
Yeah.
And we realized that we were onto something, that rather than trying to sell, hey, we're going to fix your problems, well, let's talk about how you can grow your business, your revenue, and take advantage of and compete better.
Yeah.
And that means moving the workloads to the cloud, which is what we started marketing and doing now.
Yeah. That's interesting. You're saying first off, because I remember when we first started working with you guys, and everything was, you're doing so many cloud-focused things, and you guys were definitely ahead of the curve on that, because like what we saw on the tech side is, it was starting to become popular, but it wasn't like, nowadays it's like half of what they work on. It's always some sort of cloud-focused thing. So I always thought it was interesting because a lot of times in recruiting, I think that we're not on the bleeding edge of finding out kind of what's the new, but we're like one step past that. So there's always like someone will come to us and ask for whether it's a technology or like nowadays I focus more in the marketing space, and they'll have some new thing it's something I've never heard of before, and I'm just like, is this a real thing? You know what I mean? And then you find out like 2 years later, all of a sudden everyone starts asking for it. Right. And then there's actually a market for it because then people have that skill set. So anyways, you guys were definitely kind of on the head of the curve on that, which was really cool. One thing I wanted to definitely talk about a bit was kind of sales. And the thing that I've always found interesting about sales and consulting is that it's a different path than product, we have a practice here that does sales recruiting. A lot of stuff, I think the focus for that part of the organization is very kind of SaaS heavy. Software firms have very kind of structured, people will start at one software firm, learn the basics, the kind of sales 101, maybe get some domain knowledge in certain areas. Whereas in consulting, it's different. It's like the top salespeople in consulting were actually just consultants. You're a sales guy ultimately, but you're also highly technical, but you didn't start through the sales path like a lot of people would in other aspects of kind of the sales economy, so to speak. What keys do you think in terms of, as you're growing your organization, maybe back in those early days and now, what's helped you scale the sales efforts, and what would you tell someone else to focus on from like a hiring standpoint in sales? Yeah,
consulting business is ultimately sold on your reputation and trust that the person across the table has for you. And so it's really hard to do for a salesperson. Going out and trying to transfer that trust somehow from the people that execute the work to the customer and be the in-between. What we found to be working much better is to leverage marketing and PR to amplify the message, kind of spread the news, spread the kind of thought leadership. And then potential customers get interested, they want to talk about it. And that's when essentially doers, not necessarily hands-on developers, but people like me, architects, people that have subject matter experts can come in and talk to these potential clients about the solutions, what they're trying to build. And having that conversation, we're asking the right questions, kind of bringing up potential issues definitely creates that trust, because it sounds like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He's bringing up things that I didn't even consider. And that's how you sell. And you scale by hiring more skilled kind of partner level people that have both the people skills and the technical, and then backing that up with marketing and PR to help amplify.
I always think of it as in terms of domain knowledge. Like I've seen, obviously recruiting is a very sales focused, kind of industry. Everyone who's doing it, you kind of, when you're recruiting, a lot of people think of it as an HR function, but it's really a sales function. But it's the same thing. Like the longer I've been in it, the easier the sales aspect is, just because the more you know about the space that you operate in, you can talk more intelligently without having to be salesy, you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
Exactly, yeah.
So are you, at this point, do you have any salespeople, like true salespeople, or is it still just partner, like, practice lead level people?
We have a full-fledged marketing team.
Okay.
But we do not have any salespeople.
Tell me more about the marketing. Like, what's worked for you guys? And like, I come from the standpoint of, this is what I spend all my day on, like recruiting for. So this is not your primary area, but it's what I love to chat about. Like, so as a small tech consultancy, you're probably trying to get lead generation. Like, what channels have worked for you? What kind of messaging has worked for you?
So in our situation, marketing is split into two paths. One is directly marketing to potential customers. And that's thought leadership pieces, providing content that's going to be valuable, and then targeting potential customers and offering to have a conversation.
Sure.
The other path is actually channel partners.
Okay.
So we were partnering with major cloud providers, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Our primary focus is on Amazon and Google right now. We're marketing to them in their sales organizations is almost as much effort as marketing to end clients.
Okay.
Because a lot of times customers reach out directly to Amazon and say, hey, we are considering going into cloud. Who can you recommend?
Yeah.
Being front, sort of top of their mind and providing that perspective that, yes, we can deliver. Giving them this confidence is what helps us sell deals.
Interesting. How big is the marketing team now? You said it's
4 people.
Got it. So is it primarily, it sounds like it's on both ends. It's content marketing is kind of what's worked the most for you guys.
Primarily content, yes.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Are there any other, I'm trying to think, from a market, or any channels, I guess, within content, I guess, that have been successful?
So we are actually exploring
Okay.
kind of multi-channel strategy where we are going to be providing content, picking a subject area, something like, let's say, data in the cloud in a healthcare setting.
Got it.
And then providing thought leaderships on the topic, hosting events where it's like roundtables discussing with industry leaders about their challenges and how they can solve this. Going at it, hosting other events, more like meetups with Amazon, for example.
Sure.
And a few others. And all of these are sort of targeted at that around, centered around that one topic, the key cornerstone topic that we're going to focus on, and it's going to be our quarterly campaign.
Got it. We're actually, sounds interesting because we're looking at starting to do, it seems like the events, people are realizing there's more value in events. I feel like people used to think of event marketing as like large scale events, but it really comes down to, I've known a lot of people recently have had more success kind of doing smaller things when it's more like closer crowd, where you're just trying to get like engagement with actual people and, having a speaker or something like that. So it's interesting that it's all the route you guys are going. So let's talk about building a team. because that's ultimately what we like to talk about, here at some point, kind of when we're doing these podcasts. And even you guys had to build. You went from the two of you, to a much larger organization. You said about 60 right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I guess we did kind of cover too many contractors perhaps for a while. You know what I mean? Kind of, and hiring people on full time and sourcing internally is kind of what you're recommending. But those early hires, like how. What's your strategy? Because it directly relates to delivery and how you're able to deliver with a client. And then we kind of talked about the juggling between like the sales and delivery aspect. Learning what from worked and what didn't work. If you go back to everything again, like what showed your initial hire and your initial kind of sales force look like? I'm sorry, workforce look like.
Workforce.
Yeah.
So my philosophy has been, and that's one thing that I wouldn't change, is that in order for us to deliver, as tempting as it is to hire less expensive, less experienced people and then growing them, as an early company, you simply can't afford that. It's like you have to buy a more expensive, more reliable, well, not a product, person.
Yeah.
Hire them. It sounds like a commodity, but it's not. Because you need the assurance that they can deliver and they're not going to drop the ball. Mm-hmm. And it's something, as a small company, you simply can't afford that because you get one shot with a customer. And if your hire drops, there is enough stuff that you need to worry about that if the delivery and the expertise is in question, then you're probably never going to get a second chance.
Yeah.
So you cannot, we constantly compete against larger consultancies. And one of the competitive advantages is that we don't have that traditional consulting pyramid model where you have at the top you have a few very experienced people, but the bottom of the pyramid are kind of people fresh out of college.
Yeah.
That are doing the grunt work. I don't think for a smaller shop, it's a feasible model.
Yeah, it seems like we run into, I've seen a lot of shops in different, they're not necessarily tech, but places in digital and other areas that have tried that because they think that, going with more junior people will be, more cost effective. But I think they run into the same kind of issues and they realize that, they can't, you only get one shot, like you said, or when the delivery starts slipping, because again, like consulting is a crowded space, so you only get so many opportunities. What about what types of people, I don't know if when you're kind of delivering on projects, I'm just trying to imagine, like kind of envision your business. You've got project manager types, you've got the hardcore technical types. Is it difficult trying to find people who are multifaceted that can do all of it, and the sales aspect,
Well, the sales aspect, I would say, is the hardest because finding experts is hard enough. Finding people that have enough people skills to be selling is much harder because technical and sales are sort of very opposite things.
Yeah.
And so finding one person is like finding a unicorn. It's rough. It's not easy. Some people just have more aptitude for that, and I find that it's tough to even interview for something like that.
Yeah.
Because the way people, when you interview, the way they act, and you can do personality tests and things like that, it's still not an indicator of future performance.
Yeah.
And you start seeing that after the first project, after the first 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. Don't get me started on personality tests. I think that they're the most misused thing in all of hiring. And I could rant on this entirely too, but I think there's so many places we've seen that they think it's they can punt on actually being good at interviewing because the assessment's going to tell them what they need to know, not realizing that most of these personality assessments, it's not a pass-fail thing. A lot of these places will pick a profile, like we want this kind of person, without putting like a second thought into why we might need a more diverse kind of organization. But I've found that those assessments are useful, but they can be easily misused. A lot of places, like they just don't quite, they end up hiring a very homogenous workforce of the same type of personalities, you know what I mean, and then they run into different sorts of issues. So
yeah, you definitely want the diversity of opinions, diversity of people, backgrounds, because that's, it's natural for us to try to when you're interviewing somebody that's just like you, but then it's not a force multiplier because you guys would have the same skills, same opinions, and it's not great for delivering the end result.
What's next for you guys? What's on the horizon? Like, what are the plans you've got? Any new service areas you're getting into, or?
So we've started working in the private equity space because again, we are seeing private equity companies investing heavily, acquiring companies that have legacy tech, and then investing heavily to modernize the technology and then sell these companies.
Okay.
And so especially around healthcare and SaaS companies in the healthcare space tend to be on the PE acquisition target list these days.
Yeah.
And we seem to be working well with them. And so
Nice.
We are doubling down in that direction. We've had several successful projects like that where we SaaSified an on-prem sort of old school product. And then private equity loves that because they get higher valuations out of it. So it works for everybody.
If you're out there and looking to SaaSify your on-prem. Well, cool. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave us with, or any other thoughts you had on kind of growing an organization? Or
I think it's incredibly hard for somebody that gets started. So don't get discouraged and start with a problem rather than a service that you're ready to offer.
Thanks for stopping by. I always have to read this outro text, and usually I fumble it at some point in time. So thanks for listening to Hirewell's Recruiting Insights podcast. If you like what you heard and want more insights from our recruiting experts, visit hirewell.com/recruiting-insights. And remember to subscribe to podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Eugene, thanks again for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Everyone, I will see you soon.